A mother struggles to prove that the child returned to her after going missing is not her biological child. She fights the injustice and corruption of the Los Angeles authorities in her quest for the truth. Hi, back again at ALO Recaps. Today we will recap a story from a 2008 movie, Changeling. Before we get into the story, I hope you and your family are healthy and happy always, and without further ado, let's play the story. On March 9th, 1928, located in Los Angeles, there was a single mother known as Christine Collins. She was seen just waking up from her morning sleep and waking up her only son named Walter. That morning, Los Angeles was quite busy. Christine had time to take her son to the front of the school before she continued her journey to her office. She works as a supervisor at a telecommunications company. It's hard to be a single mother, especially since Walter is always asking about his father, whom he hasn't seen since he was a child. But Christine never tells her son the truth about where his biological father went. She only says that his father ran away from his responsibilities after getting a delivery in the mail. Regardless of her current living conditions, Christine still lives her life well and is able to take care of Walter alone without any shortcomings. The next day on March 10th, 1928, was a Saturday when Christine was supposed to be off work and spend the weekend with her son. But her manager, Margaret, called Christine to ask her to work overtime because her colleague couldn't come when the office was very busy. Actually, Christine had refused because she had an appointment with Walter to go to the movies, but Margaret insisted Christine come because there was no other employee who could do it. Inevitably, the appointment with Walter was postponed. Christine knew her son was disappointed and angry, but she tried to persuade Walter, make him understand the situation. Christine promised to be home before nightfall. So, after Walter said that he would be fine, Christine immediately went to her office. Without a bad feeling, she worked until 4 o'clock that afternoon. At the end of the day, she actually wanted to rush home, but her boss, Ben Harris, talked to her and offered her the chance to fill the manager's position at the Beverly Hills branch. The short conversation that Christine agreed to made her miss the bus. She had to wait longer. She returned home a little late, but when she got home, Walter was missing. She tried to look for him in the house and around the compound, but the 9-year-old boy was nowhere to be seen. Panic and worry began to fill her thoughts and feelings. She returned home and called the police to report Walter's disappearance. But the police refused to come because Walter had not been missing for more than 24 hours and was suspected of just playing with his friend without permission. But Walter had never returned home since that day. The police began searching for Christine's son, but 2 weeks later, the boy had not been found. This unfortunate incident has become the talk of the town and Christine's neighborhood. Even the pastor Gustav Briegleb of the local church empathized to help publicize the case among his congregation. Not only that, Pastor Gustav also expressed his criticism of the Los Angeles Police Department, or LAPD for short, which is considered corrupt, the most violent and incompetent, because it often imposes punishments beyond authority. LAPD, at that time, was led by James Davis and his squad dubbed the Gun Squad. They were notorious for perverting the law for personal gratification. Dated April 3rd in 1928, almost a month after Walter disappeared, as a mother who gave birth and cared for her own son, of course Christine was very lost. She almost had no power to live. But in the end, she chose to return to work and meet people, although her thoughts were more focused on the progress of the search for her son, which was still fruitless. A few months later, on July 20th, 1928, in the DeKalb, Illinois area, a man left a young boy at a restaurant after saying he wanted to get his wallet that he had left at home to pay for their order. After not returning for a few minutes, the chef called the police. 2 days later, Captain Jones of the LAPD's Juvenile Division met Christine in his office. At first, Christine had gone limp. She thought her son wasn't safe, but Captain Jones told her that Walter was. He was the child who had been left in a restaurant in DeKalb, Illinois by a stranger. Christine's happiness that day cannot be described. She even cried because she was so happy to hear that Walter was alive and in police protection. Jones said that he was in a homeless gang in Illinois and would soon be brought back to Los Angeles. The news of Walter's discovery was soon in the public eye. Many journalists were eager to interview Christine in the LAPD's press release. This was a benefit to the LAPD, who hoped that positive news would erase any negative criticism of their department. Christine awaits Walter's return at the station, accompanied by Jones and James Davis. But as soon as the boy who was brought from the carriage got off the train, Christine was so confused she was sure that the boy was not her son, Walter. Jones was adamant that the boy was a different-looking Walter, due to having gone through 5 bad months of his life due to his disappearance. The boy, who claimed to be Walter Collins, even managed to name the full address where Christine lived. Jones didn't want the press release to get messy, so he told Christine to bring the boy home for an experiment and prove that it was the real Walter. Christine was a little hesitant, but agreed to take the boy home. While taking a shower, Christine noticed that the boy had been circumcised, whereas Walter had never been circumcised before. She also measured the boy's height, which turned out to be shorter than Walter's. Clearly, it was not her son. The physical difference was very clear. Christine asked the boy who he was, but the boy didn't say a word. Then the next day, Christine meets Jones at the police station, explaining in no uncertain terms that the boy brought to her house is not Walter. But Jones instead argues that it is possible that Walter was circumcised by the man who brought him, and there is an explanation for his shrinking height. Not only that, Jones even alleges that Christine wants to avoid her responsibilities as a mother by not recognizing the boy as Walter, her own biological son. However, Kristen urges Jones to continue searching for Walter. Jones then assigned a doctor named Earl Tarr to come to Christine's house, check the physical condition of the boy who now lives in Christine's house. The doctor said the physical differences between the two that Christine said seemed artificial. When Christine pointed out the height difference that contrasted sharply with Walter's height alone, Dr. Earl assumed that it was because trauma had shrunk his spine. Christine still stubbornly maintains her belief that the boy is not her son. The doctor also insists on his theory, even without examination, but only based on personal assumptions, which makes Christine even more doubtful about his credibility and even the LAPD. She called Jones again, complaining her condition that she felt vilified by many as a negligent mother, even though she knew that the boy was really not her son. Christine's mental state also deteriorated. She was frustrated and depressed because now no one was looking for her son. Although she kept taking good care of the strange boy, Christine still could not accept him as her son. She had yelled and cursed at the boy when she heard him call her Mom. There was regret afterward, so Christine went into the room and explained her feelings to the boy who was now sleeping in Walter's bed, begging the boy to admit that he was not Walter. Then the next morning, Pastor Gustav called Christine to ask her to come to his church. There, he read a newspaper that published a slanderous story, suggesting that Christine was a very bad mother to her child. Pastor Gustav told Christine that the story was planted by the LAPD to slander Christine, as well as keep the good name of their department that had wrongfully brought a child home. Pastor Gustav also reveals how corrupt the LAPD has become since James took office, how they have been abusive, killing people without judgment, and being corrupt by allowing smuggling to take place in their city after the high fees they receive. Pastor Gustav offers Christine help to fight the LAPD and get her son back. So now Christine begins her tactics to prove that the boy she is with is indeed not Walter. She went to the dentist where Walter was treated and had a medical record there. The doctor who saw that the boy's teeth looked neat stated that he was not Walter because Walter had previously had a back tooth filled, which was not visible in the boy's teeth. And there were no signs of dental surgery, even though Walter had done it. The doctor was willing to help by making an official statement that the child brought home was indeed not Walter. Afterwards, Christine took the boy to Walter's school, where it was proven that he was not Walter because he did not recognize his own teacher. He did not even remember where he had been sitting. Mrs. Fox, Walter's teacher, was brave enough to give an official statement and testify in court that the boy was indeed not Walter. After all the hard evidence had been obtained, Christine dared to tell her story to the press about Walter, who had not been found, and attacked the LAPD for not admitting their mistake. This public statement inflamed Jones. He ordered officers to bring Christine and her son to the police station. At the same time, a detective named Ibarra is assigned to organize the deportation of a 15-year-old boy from Canada named Stanford Wesley Clark, who is living illegally on a farm in the deanery of Riverside, Wineville, with his uncle known as Gordon Stewart Northcott. When Ibarra leaves the office, Jones calls Christine into his office only to scold and accuse her of being a crazy mother. Afterward, Christine was trapped by Jones and placed in a psychiatric hospital at Los Angeles County General. Jones then told the press that Christine had been declared insane due to paranoia, delusions, and dislocations that made her detached from reality. The poor mother who just wanted her son back was now stuck in a psychopathic ward for women only, where she was treated harshly since her arrival. Christine is given a room with a crazy woman who keeps yelling at her because she makes her share her room. It's not a good experience for Christine. She's depressed. A few days later, Detective Ibarra, who had traveled to the Northcott farm, met a man whose truck engine was emitting smoke. Ibarra greeted him and asked him the way to the farm, whereas the person being questioned turned out to be Gordon, the uncle of the boy Ibarra was looking for. Gordon initially looked nervous and almost wanted to take the rifle that was placed in the back of his truck, but he decided against it and showed the way to the farm. Ibarra did not suspect anything. After that, he immediately went in the direction that Gordon mentioned. The farm looked quite abandoned, but he managed to find a child there who ran away. Then entered the house when he saw Ibarra. The child hid. Ibarra, who entered the house, found many irregularities from the messy house and realized that the man he had met earlier was Gordon. The boy he was looking for had attacked Ibarra, but was quickly defeated by Ibarra, who restrained him and took Clark straight to the office. Actually, Clark was surprised because he just wanted to be deported back to his home country, rather than for any wrongdoing that seemed to be hidden. In the center of Los Angeles, Pastor Gustav has just assigned his assistant to look for news of Christine's disappearance, even though they have made an appointment to conduct an interview session and publication through a special radio channel filled by Pastor Gustav. He does not yet know that Christine was transferred to the mental hospital ward, while at the same time, Gordon is trying to escape to Seattle to avoid arrest. The first night had passed by Christine in the ward. At breakfast time, Christine made the acquaintance of an inmate named Carol, who initially asked on what grounds Christine had been brought to the place. Carol turns out to be one of several women who were sent to the asylum for trying to defy police authorities and expose the disgrace of that institution. Carol's presence now greatly helps Christine's position to survive in the psychiatric ward. At the police station, Clark, who has just received his deportation schedule, suddenly remembers his uncle's bad deeds that caused traumatic events in his mind. He insists on meeting with Ibarra to report the terrible things he knows. On the same day, Christine meets with Dr. Jonathan Steele, who asks about her feelings when she arrives at the ward. Christine remembers Carol's words to her and tries to act as normal as possible in front of the doctor. But then, the doctor diagnoses her as delusional because the statement is considered different from what the doctor knows. Meanwhile, Clark has met with Ibarra and told him all about his uncle Gordon. Clark hadn't intended to stay illegally in Los Angeles, but Gordon had threatened him. If Clark tried to leave, he would kill Clark. At first, Ibarra didn't want to listen, but when Clark started talking about the murders committed by his uncle, he quickly got all her attention. Clark says that Gordon forced him to help kill the children. He feels guilty for helping Gordon, but he's also afraid he'll be killed by his uncle if he disproves. Clark claimed to have never recognized the names of the children who were murdered. There were about 20 children that Clark remembered, but it could be more than that, because Clark had even forgotten the count. Ibarra had realized that this had become a serial killer case. Clark also recounts how Gordon kidnapped the children by using his presence so that the kidnapped children could believe that they were safe because there was another child with him. Clark's crying didn't stop, even though he continued to explain. There was trauma and pain he felt too. He said Gordon could capture 2 to 4 children a day, collect them, and then kill them one by one. If there were any survivors, then Clark was coerced into killing them. Ibarra showed Clark photos of the missing children, asking him to identify if there were any he recognized. There were a dozen photos that were recognized. One of them was of Walter, Christine's son. This led to the suspicion that the child had died at Gordon's hands. Ibarra becomes agitated. He can't believe something this bad could happen. Clark also convinced Ibarra that Walter had been one of the children killed at his uncle's farm. Ibarra reports this to Jones, who refuses to believe him and instead accuses Clark of being a liar, trying to find an opportunity to stay longer in Los Angeles. When Ibarra calls, Pastor Gustav and his congregation are also at the police station. They ask for clarity on Christine's whereabouts. Jones hung up after asking Ibarra to take Clark to the LAPD office. Jones met Pastor Gustav and learned that Christine was now in the custody of a mental hospital due to her mental illness. Now, Christine was even being forced to take tranquilizer pills that were not supposed to be taken. Dr. Jonathan says that she could be released if Christine would sign a statement in which she admits that she was wrong about the boy the police took as Walter, and recognizes the boy as her son. But of course, Christine refuses. There was a fight after that, where Carol briefly defended Christine, but she was punished with an electroshock process that paralyzed her. Jones had ordered Clark's deportation to be expedited, making Ibarra unable to keep quiet. He decided to bring Clark back to the ranch and investigate the truth. Ibarra is not alone. This time he brings two of his subordinates to check the house and the ranch, then asks Clark to show where the children's bodies are buried. Clark was hesitant at first, but after only a short time of digging, he soon found several body parts of the murdered children. They were buried in shallow soil. Ibarra immediately asked the nearby officers from the farm to come to the scene, and fugitive status was set for Gordon. It was already the 6th day since Christine had been arrested. Dr. Jonathan is still persuading her to sign a statement, which Christine keeps refusing to do. She resists and is almost sentenced to electric shock. But fortunately, Pastor Gustav arrives at the right time and releases Christine after showing Jonathan the newspaper story about the Wineville murders that mentions Walter as one of the victims. When Christine comes out, the first thing she hears is the death of her own son. This news has embarrassed the LAPD, who have committed public fraud. James also reprimanded Jones for his actions, who was considered the culprit of the LAPD's problems because of his stubbornness regarding Walter's existence. Under interrogation by Ibarra, the boy who previously claimed to be Walter finally told that his real name was Arthur, who wanted to go to Los Angeles just to see his favorite actor, Tom Mix. But he was then told to lie by the police to be Christine's son. Despite the complicated circumstances of the case, Christine eventually lost her zest for life. Sometime later, it was in Vancouver, Canada, on September 20th, 1928, when Gordon, who had become a fugitive, was finally arrested when he returned to the home of his sister, who reported his whereabouts. Pastor Gustav also introduced Christine to a famous lawyer named Han, who was willing to take on her case and quickly obtained a court order to release all the women who were unjustly dragged by the police force to silence them from spreading the ugliness of the police department. On the day of the hearing, the city council covering Walter's death became the most crowded day in front of Los Angeles City Hall, where thousands of protesters demonstrated demanding answers from the city government and condemning the LAPD for their work. Christine came to the hearing with Han and Gustav, but James and Jones were not there. None of the police officers came to represent the council, but it turned out that they were in another courtroom for the prosecution of Gordon, who had greeted Christine as she entered the courtroom because he had seen Christine in the newspaper. Gordon declared his innocence at the beginning of the trial. An interlude of the council hearing was also shown, where Jones still refused to admit his guilt, which made Han continue to corner Jones at the trial. Several witnesses were then presented to fill Walter's case, who confirmed Christine's statement that her son was still missing. Christine also refuses to confirm that her son is dead, because as a mother, she has a feeling that Walter is actually still alive out there. In the final trial, the council stipulated that Jones and James be dismissed from their duties in the police force, as well as that unlawful police abuses be stopped. Gordon was also found guilty of first-degree murder by the jury, and the judge sentenced him to death by hanging after serving 2 years imprisonment until October 2nd, 1930. Before the execution, Gordon approached Christine and stated that he did not kill Walter. That sentence made Christine's belief even stronger that Walter was actually still alive. So, 2 years later, Christine still continued her search for her son. September 30th, 1930, Gordon asked to see Christine in order to explain Walter's death. Christine also met him before the execution, but Gordon refused to state if he killed Walter. The next morning, Gordon had his execution witnessed by the victim's parents, including Christine. On February 27, 1935, Christine received news that David Clay, one of the boys who had allegedly been murdered, was found alive in Hesperia, California. In his interview with the officer, David shared that one of the boys he was imprisoned with was Walter, and that Walter and 2 other boys had escaped but were separated during their escape. David did not know whether Walter was recaptured or not, but he said Walter was the boy who helped him escape. This confession gave Christine hope that her son was still alive. She continued her search until the end of her life. and the movie was finished. 142 minutes is well worth spending on a captivating story about a mother's struggle to find her son again. Although it has a very long duration, but I think it will be quite worth the experience and impression that the audience will get after watching Changeling. The movie explores serious themes of child endangerment, women's powerlessness in society, dirty political corruption, mistreatment of mental health patients, and the horrific issue of violence. Changeling cultivates a sense of emotion and empathy through an atmosphere that is very effectively built to make us feel the long journey of a mother through various problems to find her son. The movie is quite captivating. It keeps the audience wondering whether justice can prevail in the midst of a nasty political situation. Changeling is quite great in terms of storytelling and atmosphere building. The actors also do their job very well. Clint Eastwood has succeeded in producing another good work. So, what do you think about this movie? If you like it, please like and comment in this video, and subscribe so you don't miss any video from ALO Recaps. See you in next video.